Have you ever wanted to cut something on your Cricut that was bigger than 24 inches but not sure how? Well, today I'll show you. We're going to take this boring glass table and make it fab by adding a 24-inch wide mandala. I'll give you tips on applying vinyl to glass, and I'll also show you in Design Space how to create this design to be cut on your Cricut. So let's get started. Here we have a blank canvas in Cricut Design Space, and the first thing we're going to want to do is find the mandala we want to use. So I'm going to click Images here on the left toolbar and just type mandala in. As you can see, there are a lot of different options already in Design Space for mandala. So we'll scroll through and pick the design that we have here on our table. This is the one that we picked. You just click that, you'll have a preview down at the bottom, and then just click Insert Image. Next, we'll want to change the size of our mandala since we want it to be big enough to fit into the center of the table. The widest that you can cut a design, or the longest that you can cut a design, is 23.5 inches wide. But just to keep math simple, we're going to make this 23 inches. We're actually going to change the width because it is a little bit bigger. So we'll make that 23 inches wide, and it makes it just a little bit shorter than 23 inches high. Next, we're going to zoom out so that we can see the full design. Now you will see this little triangle over here in your layers panel. That's just saying that this design right now is too big to be cut on the Cricut. So we will go to Shapes and add a square. Now we want to change the size of the square to be half the size of the mandala. So we're going to go up and we're going to unlock the sizes so that I can change the width and the height independently. I'm going to change the width to 11.5 inches, so half of 23 inches. And then I'm going to change the height to 25 inches just to make sure that I get from top to bottom that whole mandala. Then I'm going to move our rectangle over to the mandala. It's okay if it's not centered because once we have it there, looks like we need to move it over to the center. I will select both the rectangle and the mandala and then go up to our Align button in our top menu and just click Align Left. This aligns everything to the left, and then we'll go down to the bottom right menu where you see Slice and click Slice. Now we can just delete the images, the slices we don't need. So we'll delete all of the gray slices, and this gives us two perfectly sliced images that will fit our Cricut. Now, if we click Make It, you'll see that we still have a triangle down here, and it is saying that the original mandala that we sliced is a little bit too big. So to fix that, we're going to just click OK. I'm going to change the height on the original one to 11.4, or not the height, I apologize, the width to 11.4. And then I will also change the width of the sliced image to 11.4. Since we sliced right down the middle and it's the same size, it will make it so it fits perfectly. So let's change this one to 11.4. And then as you can see, they line up perfectly and we are ready to cut our design. So let's click Make It. Now, for this design, because it's a circle, you technically don't need to mirror it. But if you are putting a design on the underside of a table, which is what I'm doing today, and it wasn't a circle, you'd want to mirror it. So just to be in the habit of mirroring it, I am going to mirror it here. We can see that we have the mat changed to 12 by 24 automatically. We've mirrored both layers, and now we're going to click Continue. The first thing you want to do is select your machine. So we'll select the Maker. You can totally do this design with an Explore machine as well. I'm just using the Maker today. Next, you'll set your material. If you don't see the premium vinyl here, just click Custom or Search Materials, and I just type in premium, and I'm able to find premium vinyl right there. And click Done. Now, it might be because my blade is dull, a little dull, but I noticed that I needed to change the pressure to more to get a nice clean cut on this one. So I changed the pressure to more, and let's go ahead and head over to the Maker and get started cutting this. Just want to share a quick tip before we start cutting on how I apply the vinyl to my mat, especially with these larger mats. I do keep it on the roll just so it's easier to use, and then I just cut the size down at the bottom of the mat when it's done. Another tip to make sure that you don't get bubbles in your mat and ruin your design when you're cutting it is to use a brayer. I'll link this in the description of the video. This gets all of the bubbles out of your material you're cutting. So you'll load your mat into your maker, and then when the C light is flashing, you click that to begin the cut. Now it does take a little bit of time to cut, so we will skip ahead with the magic of video, and I will give you some tips on weeding such a big design. My first tip is, instead of pulling your vinyl off your mat, pull your mat off your vinyl. It makes it flatter and it's easier to work with when weeding. Next, use a weeding tool and start in a corner and try to keep, as you're weeding, your design at like a 90-degree angle. Also, cut pieces that you're not using right away. As you can see, this is a big design and we don't want to worry about the vinyl getting stuck to itself. So cut pieces that are already weeded or new pieces where you're starting, and that way you don't worry about ruining vinyl as you cut it. So you can see here that we're going to cut this piece so that we're able to weed around one of the circles without getting that vinyl stuck to itself. Here we are just finishing up weeding the design. I know it's kind of hard to see because it's a white design, but it'll be easier to show you when we're working at the table. Next, a tip for applying transfer tape. Put the start of your transfer tape on your table, and then butt your design up to the transfer tape and press the vinyl or the transfer tape down on your design. Here we are measuring our table and our design to make sure that everything is lined up. We measure from both sides and then also from the top of the design to the bottom and the top of the design to the other side of the table to make sure that everything is centered. Next, what we're going to want to do, since we're going to use the hinge method for applying our vinyl to the table, that way we don't get any wrinkles or creases, we're just going to apply some painter's tape right along the middle. After that, you'll lift up your vinyl and use something like your scraper to hold it down. Use rubbing alcohol and clean your surface where you're going to be putting the vinyl down first to make sure that the vinyl adheres really well to the glass or whatever surface you're using. Next, what you'll want to do is peel back the backing from the side that you're using. And once it's fully peeled back, you'll want to use scissors to cut the backing off. Again, you can use your scraper to hold down your transfer tape and your vinyl to make sure it doesn't go forward and stick to the backing. Next, just slowly lay down your design and use your scraper starting in the middle of the design, so where your transfer or your masking tape is, and press outwards. Once you have that side done, go ahead and remove your painter's tape from the inside or from the center of the design, and then you'll want to lift up the other side of your design. Use rubbing alcohol again to clean the table, and then just peel back the backing from your vinyl. Once that's peeled back, you'll do the same thing. You'll start slowly pressing down your design using your scraper and pressing from the center of the design outwards. Now here's a tip, because the transfer tape that I'm using is super sticky, as you can see as I start removing it here. I use the same piece of transfer tape on the second piece of vinyl. So I'm scraping the vinyl onto the table here just to make sure that it's set in there really good. And then I'm slowly peeling back my vinyl, making sure, or my transfer tape, making sure not to bunch it so that I can use it for the second mandala, which we'll see here in just a moment. If you peel at the 90-degree angle like this, it makes it so you don't have to worry about if any pieces come up, you can save that. I had an LED light that I put underneath the table here so I could line up our designs perfectly. And then I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the first side, with adding the painter's tape to the middle and then using rubbing alcohol to clean our surface. Next, we'll cut off the backing of the first side of our the backing of the first side of our design, and then press down with our scraper, scraping from the middle and pushing outwards. Next, I started to move the design here without removing the painter's tape, and then realized, oh, I'm not going to be able to get everything lifted up. So make sure to not skip that step. If you leave the masking tape there, you won't be able to fully get the backing off of the whole second side of your design. So we're using rubbing alcohol again to get the table nice and clean. And then we are going to use our scraper tool here and scrape our design onto the table. Now, you'll notice I'm not as worried about the transfer tape sticking to itself here since I won't be using it again. So I'm able to peel it a little bit quicker this time. If you're looking at it from this angle, it looks like the design is not centered on the table, but that is why we measured it so many times in the beginning. As you'll see here, when we are finished with the design, it is perfectly centered on the glass table. But if you just go by the look of the eye, you will be off-centered because it does look that way depending on what angle you are looking at. So we're just about done getting that transfer tape off the vinyl. Now we do have a few bubbles in our design, so let me share with you a tip to get rid of the bubbles. Using a blow dryer or a heat gun, you want to heat up your vinyl and then take a pin and poke a hole in the bubbles that you have. Use your finger to rub out the bubble and then heat it up a little bit more and rub again until your bubbles are gone. I've used this trick on glass tables. This glass table, I've used it on pumpkins, I've used it on wood, and it's just a really great tip to get rid of those bubbles if you have them when you are working with vinyl. And there you have it. A perfectly spaced mandala that we're able to cut all on our Cricut. If you'd like to see the full written description of this video, there is a link to my blog post in the profile, and I'd love for you to subscribe.